Hey all, welcome to Office Hours, where we answer your media and tech-related production questions every single day. Alexander Knight from Port Coquitlam, British Columbia is our reader today. Alexander, what's our first question?
First question this morning is coming from David Brady in New York City, New York, USA. I have a monitor with built-in USB hub function as well as an OWC dock that is primary. How can I maximize available ports, i.e. connecting upstream and downstream ports?
And we're going right back to Alexander for our first answer. Alexander?
Yeah, so OWC ports are great. If you have another one, I can understand why. You obviously have a lot of peripherals that you need to connect. My suggestion, if you have to do this, and generally I don't like using hubs inside of monitors, but if you're going to use them, I would not put anything mission critical through it. So no audio and video devices or anything that really matters. The way I would hook it up, at least the way I do it, is the OWC Thunderbolt dock would go into its own port. I would not connect the output of the built-in hub on the monitor to the OWC dock. What I would do is go through a separate bus, so use another port on that computer, so that's its own thing, and then the OWC, it's its own thing. So just keep them separated.
Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, and Mickey has a great outline for this. List all your USB devices, order them in bandwidth requirements, connect the display, hub, OWC dock, and the highest bandwidth devices directly to the computer, less bandwidth devices to the OWC, and the least intensive devices like a mouse or keyboard to the display hub.
Always good advice there. Everything. Next question.
From the QR code, Manzi Alain Elize in Kigali, Rwanda is asking, hello, Office Hours. Why do ATEM switchers compress sound when you input XLR cable into ATEM switchers?
Alexander, thoughts on that?
Well, I'm not super versed in the whole ATEM line, but I know the ATEM minis don't have XLR. I'm not aware that the current constellations, at least the rack mount ones, I don't see XLR on it. Maybe you're using MADI with the XLR converter boxes on there. It shouldn't be compressed unless somehow you have dynamics processing on those channels in the Fairlight mixers. So you might want to double check. Maybe you can come back and provide us with more information, maybe describe in more detail about what you're hearing, or send us screenshots. That would also help.
Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, same thing. I don't think that they naturally apply dynamics unless you turn them on. So they can compress it, but I don't think that they naturally will. That has not been our experience. So yeah, let us know a little bit more about what you're experiencing there. But unless you turn the dynamics on, it should be the same thing that goes in should be embedded to the hardware. And some of the older switchers and some of the other switchers do have XLR ins, and some of the bigger switchers have XLR ins. So you may have one of those, but they shouldn't be doing any dynamics.
Mickey also noted, make sure the inputs are set to line level. If you are feeding line level, make sure you're not feeding line level into a mic level input, which might kind of sound compressed.
Generally, you want to get out of mic level as fast as possible. As, get a good preamp, a beautiful preamp, wherever that's going to be, and set it and get have that preamp convert that wherever it's going to go to line, and then just stay there.
Next question.
QR code question from Ola A in Kent, United Kingdom. I use NDI input on vMix to display graphics / lower thirds during a live stream over a wireless LAN. However, sometimes the NDI input doesn't appear until I restart vMix, which disrupts the stream. How can I fix this with minimal or no interruption?
And Guy Cochran's going to try to help you out here. Guy?
Yeah, step one would be to try to avoid using Wi-Fi with NDI. It's just an accident waiting to happen. Oh, I just went my screen refresh. Sorry about that. Okay, sorry. And the other thing would be to use NDI Router. So NDI Router is a free app inside of NDI Tools, and that could lock that destination, and that way that'll keep that from happening. The other thing would be to use a discovery server, and that'll also help with the multicast and being able to tell where that source and listener is.
Hopefully that helped, Jola. Let's go to our next question.
Mike Sorrentino in New York from the QR code is asking, what is everyone loving these days for cloud switching? We have vMix with Splashtop at the office, but have been looking into LiveU Studio. Streamyard is limited, as is Riverside. Looking to bring in remote guests with custom graphics. Thank you.
If only we had someone with a lot of experience. Oh, wait, Alex Lindsay.
I think Carbonite Code is one that a lot of folks are using in the group, and they seem to like it a lot. And so that's one there. We're using Vector from VizRT for our evening shows for the extras and the specials, and they just incorporated the native Zoom support, and we just used it on the last extra hours, and it went really well. so the new integration of Zoom into not vMix but Vector was very successful for our show. So we're pretty happy with that. A lot of folks here use vMix and vMix in the cloud as well. So they're doing what you're doing there. So, and we use vMix on Saturdays. So we're playing with that as well. So those are a variety of different ways that you're it sounds like you're already doing it. vMix. Jonas Dottel offered to help you out if you want to see anything else with vMix.
Nice. That is the spirit of the office hours community. You show up here and somebody who really knows this stuff inside and out will often say, I'll help. Next question.
From the QR code, Paul O'Connor in Ireland, what is the best way to install a clean, unbloated version of Windows 11 on PC? Would like to use the PC as a production machine with minimal background processing.
And our resident PC guru, Courtney Gooden, is going to weigh in on this. Courtney?
Well, to install Windows 11 that is unbloated, the problem with Windows is on cheaper laptops, things like that, the manufacturers load lots of bloatware on there and trial software and that installs automatically to decrease the cost of putting Windows or decrease the cost of the machine. So the cost is subsidized by the people who insist that their software be loaded when you boot into Windows. So you can go to Microsoft's Media Creation tool. If you just search for that, this is what it looks like. It lets you create a Windows 11 installation tool. It can either be a thumb drive or a disk image. These days, who burns a disk? But you can create one on a USB thumb drive. Just create your installation media here. You just download it now, and it will install the current version, which may be out of date, that's available. You'll probably have to run update once you install it. But I always keep a thumb drive around with that Windows 11 media creation tool so that if I have a old Windows machine that's become bloated and slowed down, I just wipe it and stick the media creation tool in there. And most of the computers I buy these days have the license built into the firmware. So it is a hardware license, digital hardware license. So you don't have to worry about a Windows key to authenticate it. You will just do this installation from the thumb drive, and it will install a clean version of Windows, and it will authenticate itself if it finds that digital key stored in the ROM operating system of the computer. Now, then you can go through and disable. What I do is I go through and look at go to the task manager or the startup page in the task manager, and you look at all the processes that are running, and if it's something you don't need or don't want, you can just disable that process so it will no longer start up. And that will clean up your installation and cut out a lot of the background running processes. But, you'd probably want to keep your Windows Defender, all those processes running to protect you from viruses that are trying to hammer you over the internet, especially if you're going to be connecting this to the internet. But there's a whole lot of stuff that you can disable on startup, keep it from starting up. And then next time you reboot Windows, it'll start up a lot cleaner.
Alexander Knight.
Yeah, the best thing to do is to just buy a copy of Windows. If the machine came with a lot of bloatware, I tend to just wipe that whole thing away. I'm not a big fan of these types of tools that will strip the OS because from my personal experience, and I haven't used this specific one, but when I used to build Windows PCs, I used to test stuff like that, and sometimes they would get too aggressive about turning off a lot of they got so aggressive that they would strip a lot of and disable a lot of services that cause problems with a lot of other apps that, and then they don't work properly. So I would recommend a clean install of Windows. You can go into add remove programs, remove stuff that you don't want, even stuff like Edge browser if you don't want that. If you don't want Cortana, there are ways of disabling those services. Windows Defender is the default malware/antivirus tool. I would probably just have that, although it's pretty efficient and not a huge hog on resources. I would not have that run during production hours where you're working, so just go there, disable that, and just remember on Windows Pro, you can delay major system updates. You cannot completely get rid of them without going to Windows Enterprise licensing. With Enterprise, you can have full control, completely disable those major updates that Microsoft rolls out, I think, quarterly. So just be aware of that as well.
And Mickey in the chat says, use Windows Deployment Kit to create a custom installer once you know kind of what you don't want and what you do want. That'll help you make it easier. Next question.
Scott Tupper in Livermore, California, USA. I recently upgraded my ISP speeds and have very inconsistent results. Testing at the gateway is spot on, but sites like speedtest and fast.com are dismal. Who is right?
Courtney, what do you think?
Well, it depends on what you mean by gateway, testing the gateway. If you're just testing your local area network to your gateway, well, that's, of course, just testing the speed of that gateway within your network. If you're going out on the internet and testing your ISP's gateway, it can vary. It depends on what local. If it's you're using a local server, so find a test like Ookla lets you change your internet gateway as that first step into the internet, and you can try. It'll show you the different gateways that are available for you for your ISP, and you can select a different one and test the different speeds there and find the one that works the best for you and stay with that. And I mean, I just tested fast.com and look, I got a 950 down and about a 920 up, so not bad.
Your data is flowing. Good for you. Hey, don't forget, we're always taking your questions. That's really what drives our show. That's what makes everything happen around here. You can chat about questions. You can vote on the questions, which helps prioritize them. The more votes a question gets, the quicker we get to it, the more time we spend on it. To do all that, go to officehours.global/join. We'll send you an email. You follow that path that's outlined in the email. That's officehours.global/join. That's how you get in and can participate and actually drive the show. Thanks for watching. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael, what have your experiences been with the PiKVM and NanoKVM versus commercial lights out management tools?
Alex Lindsay.
We're working on a project that's using about 100 of these right now. So ask me in a month or 2 months so they're being configured right now. Basically, they're being used to administer how some other devices are being used remotely. So that we have 100 locations. We got to manage those 100 locations, and we're using these to do some of that fine control. So we'll know more in 2 months. I'll tell you if it's working great or it's not. I expect it to work great. They look pretty good.
Wow, that's a look at the future, perhaps. Next question.
From the QR code, Manzi Elaine Elize in Kigali, Rwanda. Hello from Rwanda. Can analog mixers still work in this generation? Can it also make good sound like in a church for online audiences? Thanks.
Alex Lindsay, what do you think?
Yeah, it definitely can. There are some advantages to the analog. One thing is oftentimes they are a little bit more forgiving when it comes to overmodulation. When you get a hot signal coming in, oftentimes they handle that better than a digital mixer. They are a little simpler for people to use if you have people working with it. I say all that. I would never use an analog mixer again. So I'm not saying that they can't do well. You can absolutely do a great job with those. I find that for the most part, the self noise and the lack of the ability to route makes me crazy. So I can't go back. But I will say that a lot of people love using them. There's a lot of people in the forums or in our chat that love using them. So I'm not going to say that they can't be done. I'm just saying I wouldn't.
Courtney Gooden.
Well, that's because analog, Alex lives in a digital, remotely operated world a lot of times, and you can't do that very easily with an analog mixer.
It's not remote though. I just wanted to say it's I wouldn't in the same space. I owned a lot of analog mixers, and I just find them so limiting. When I'm sitting there, so that's the problem.
I understand. But I tell you, I've worked for a number of sound studios, and the thing they prized the most was their analog mixers. They had digital mixing consoles, but the people would come in and say, "Oh, I want to use that old Neve analog. Yeah, oh, it sounds so good. Has iron on the inputs, because it has that ease of distortion. It's not quite. It doesn't. When it does go bad, it doesn't go bad in a way that makes the audio unusable. It just goes bad in a more pleasing way. The distortion sounds better. So yes, you still use them. They are a lot cheaper a lot of times for the smaller mixers. They're self-noise. They can have as good a preamps as digital mixers, sound devices, analog mixers. They're digitally controlled, but it depends on the quality of the preamps, and if they used, recent op amps in there that are high quality and low noise match transistors in their outputs, you can get a pretty good analog mixer out there. But like Alex said, you can't. Routing is more difficult, but if you like using patch cords and keeping them clean, they can work just fine for you.
Alexander Knight.
Yeah, like what was said. So what we're talking about with distortion is basically the pleasing type of distortion with analog preamps. When you push them really hard, is called even order harmonics. That's pleasing to our ear. In the digital world, that is very, very ugly sounding. Once you go past the 0 dB FS, that's full scale, it sounds awful. So can you use analog? Yes. Should you? In this day, no. You can get for not much more money than, a lot of these sub $1,000 analog mixers just have too many limitations. You get no graphic EQ, you get no processing. Maybe you get a USB interface, 2-channel interface on it if you're lucky. Very limited auxiliary outputs, which is annoying. You get maybe 2 aux outputs on a lot of these analog mixers. For not much more money, you can get a digital mixer these days. Allen Heath has their affordable little touchscreen interfaces, the CQ series, which they came out with last year. Also, I would look at some of the Yamaha stuff like the DM3Ds if 16 channels of inputs is enough for you. Those sound fantastic. And also some of the higher end digital mixers as well. They do sound very, very good. The preamps are very good, like on the Allen Heath SQ series and higher, of course. If you are going to be in the analog world and you have the money, I would get this, the SSL Origin. They make a 16-channel, they make a 32 and a 48, a large format version of that console, but that's a lot of money.
Next question.
This one is from the QR code, Canton, Madison, Ohio. With the Hollyland Cosmo C2 wireless video transmission system, still looking for a wireless system for multiple cameras. Any thoughts on this system? Thanks.
Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, so the Hollylands, they're less expensive, and I do know people who have been pretty successful with them. I find that their range is not nearly what they say it is. This one, I think, this is the Hollyland. It's got 2 transmitters and 1 receiver. So this is the Cosmo C2. It says 33 milliseconds. I've never used a Hollyland that felt like 33 milliseconds of delay. It feels more than that. So a couple more frames than that is something that we've experienced with the Hollyland. It says up to 3,000 feet. I think up to 3,000 feet is a dry day in the desert, line of sight, 10 feet above everything else. So I think that we find that the operational distance for these is a couple hundred feet, which has been enough for what we've used them for. So we try to minimize the wireless throw of any wireless system, but especially the Hollylands, we make sure that we have line of sight. We generally aren't trying to throw more than 30 or 40 feet. Because we'll move the receivers there, and so we do have teams that we worked with that have them. We've been able to squeeze out a successful show with them, but it's not the one that I would choose. Obviously, there's some other ones that we've used that are a bit more aggressive. The Rangers have worked really well from Teradek. We're using some DJIs next week, so but I won't tend to rent or buy Hollylands, but if they come with a kit, we've made them work.
Guy Cochran.
Yeah, we talked about this a couple days ago, and we recommended the DJI. I know it's in the $2,500 range, but you can pass that on to a client and just rent it, $257 for a week, and lensrentals.com is the place to have it. You can also try out. They have the Hollyland there, and Axoon as well if you just want to rent some. I've used this one, the Hollyland Mars. I've also tried the Hollyland Cosmo C1, and it is impressive what they can do. It's just that if it depends on the production. If you can handle your reputation when the glitch occurs, the hits will come. So you just got to be prepared. And if your client's okay with that for the savings of a couple $100, then so be it. So it's hard to recommend something that it's the buy once, cry once thing. I can't with a good heart say, get that Hollyland or get that Axoon and have you crash and burn during a production.
Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, if a project goes sideways or anything goes wrong, there's kind of musical chairs of who's going to end up in front of the bus. And when you have cheaper electronics, whether they worked or not in the lab, you're going to be really close to the front of the bus. You just have to be. A lot of times, people are careful about what they buy, also because it's got to be defendable. Now, what I will say is that when you say multiple cameras, I mean, we are so careful to never use wireless when we don't need it. So we never use it for convenience. We only use it for, I got a Steadicam, or I got something that's got a, that can't be, tied down, or we have to be somewhere wireless. But always look through the lens of you should not use wireless unless you have to.
And don't forget, we're expanding a little bit into additional shows. Extra Hours happens every Monday here on the Office Hours kind of network area. That's a general show especially for people on the other side of the world for whom this time slot doesn't work. It's in the middle of the night or something like that. So Extra Hours is on Monday. On Thursdays, tonight, as a matter of fact, David Paskin is doing The Rundown. That's a new show that we have on Thursday. Well, it's actually not so new now. It's been going on for multiple episodes, and that's a wide-ranging discussion of all sorts of topics. So check out some of those other offerings. Next question.
Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana, has using the proximity effect as a voiceover technique for emphasis on lower frequencies gone out of fashion. And how closely do corporate productions follow these commercial techniques?
Courtney Gooden.
I tend to think corporate productions are shying away from them because they don't want to seem too pretentious. And I think the sound you're talking about came from heavy smokers back in the 60s and 70s, which would coat the vocal cords and give you that in a world with lots of vocal fry and a proximity effect. There are still a few announcers out there that like to use the U47, U87s and those proximity effect and climb right up to top of them. But I think a decrease in it's become kind of a cliche, and I think people want to shy away from the cliche and get more into realistic type voices today and conversational type delivery rather than the announcer-ish type delivery, which was, rampant in the 80s and 90s. Alex Lindsay.
In general, when it comes to audio and video, we're just seeing a lot of folks shying away from anything that feels overproduced. And I can, while I say, oh, I don't know what that would mean, I know that if I'm on TikTok and I see something that feels like, normally I would go, this show, for instance, we have short depth of field and everything else. If I see TikTok and I see something that looks really shiny and really overproduced and everything else, the chances of me watching it more than 2 seconds is very low. Like, it's just, I'm just going to go past it because that's not what I'm looking for, because I just immediately connect it to an ad. So I think that commercialism has been really difficult for a lot of the traditional media companies, because a lot of the next generation, and even just anyone watching this a lot, builds up a sensitivity towards everything that is overproduced gets connected to being a commercial, and people just skip right past them if they can. So that's the real challenge.
Yeah, I have to just speak to this from somebody who's been doing voice work for a long, long time. Fashions come and fashions go. For a while, people wanted booming announcer voices. Then nobody wanted them. And all of us who did that kind of work had to figure out a different kind of base level performance that was more, I kept hearing the words neighbor next door. You're just having a conversation with the neighbor next door. And now there's all sorts of variations in there. It's a combination of still trying to cut through and make something that people want to actually listen to. It has to be clean and distinct, but not with so little personality that it seems, as to Alex's point, like it could just as easily be generated by an algorithm as opposed to human. Particularly in the audiobook world that I'm playing around with still these days, authenticity is a term that comes up more and more and more. People want things that sound authentic, and I think that's what all the AI programmers are trying desperately to program in, is the little cues that tell you this is a real human being talking to you, as opposed to something that's generated. So it's always going to have the same rhythm, the same emphasis where those emphasis points are, as opposed to the variability of human speech. So for what it's worth, that's what I'm hearing. Alexander Knight, you wanted to get back in on this?
In my limited experience in this world, I did some engineering and sat in on some sessions at a school that trains people, everything from animation, voiceover work, to corporate, to audiobooks, and none of the instructors encourage that. They just want, in fact, they like people to have very consistent mic technique to kind of stay in the same place. Now, we use their voice, but not get really close to get that proximity effect. So again, also in the broadcast world, when I was in school too, they really shied away from, so just be yourself. Don't try to sound like somebody that you're not. So definitely there's been a big change in those industries on how people present themselves on a microphone.
Yeah, the one last thing I'll mention is that it has to do also with just human perception. If somebody's talking to you from 4 feet away, they're at a distance, you're not letting them into your head. If somebody's literally a couple of inches away from your ear, that's a very intimate sound, and a lot of people are uncomfortable with that, other than from people that they truly trust. So there's all these various psychological things having to do with the proximity effect and things like that can play into this. Next question.
Guy Cochran in Seattle, USA. 3 new NDI Bridge hardware implementations announced. What are they?
Guy Cochran's going to help us out. Guy?
So every year at NAB, we have a theme that starts to occur, and I think we're already starting to see this groundswell. So NDI Bridge, for those of you that don't know what it is, it's basically a host and a joiner that allows 2 different networks to join together, and the other joiner could be halfway across the world or just down the hall. What the bridge can also do is transcode, so it can take one format and into another. What we've seen over the last few days, yesterday we saw the announcement of Viz's product, which is an audio product. What struck me last year is that at NAB is that we ran into Dr. NDI on the floor, and he mentioned to Alex, like, oh, NDI Bridge hardware. And then we didn't really hear anything about it. I heard some stuff in the back end on cameras that manufacturers were starting to implement, because I guess it's just well, I don't want to get too much in the weeds, but basically the Viz product looks like this, and it has remote NDI network bridge announced here right on this device. Who knows what price point this is going to come in at, but basically I did confirm that this will only be a joiner. So why is that important? So a joiner is usually the far end, and you have to have an open port on the host machine. So there was a great test the other day by Streaming Alchemy that showed the difference between NDI Bridge and SRT, because a lot of these cameras and devices can do SRT, but there was some jitter issues and things like that you want to be aware of. So if you can, I'll put a link in the chat, watch his video if you care that much about it. The other device that got announced was KiloView's N60. It is also just a joiner, so it does not act as host, but as long as you have a host, and a joiner can also, 2 joiners can join one host, so you can have multiple places all sharing these feeds. The other thing that's cool is that DMX is now, SoundWireWorks will be showing at NAB the ability to bring lights up and down over NDI Bridge. So now we're remotely controlling not just video and audio and PTZ control, so we could pan, tilt, zoom cameras, but we can also bring up lights, and now we've got audio as well. So it's a really exciting NAB. The last one that was announced yesterday was the UE160. So the Panasonic UE160 will have NDI Bridge built in. It's a firmware update, and you just put it on there, and boom, you can now transmit without a computer. So that you just drop that. I mean, think about it. You go to a convention, you just drop that UE160 on-prem, and as long as it connects to the internet, it dials back. I have an NDI Bridge here running. Bill could be in San Diego. He could join as well, and he could take control over that just by joining my network that I have up here. So it's exciting to see what's going down. I think we'll see more as the show starts off next week.
Yeah, we're getting very close to it. NAB starts Sunday for the public, for the general people coming in. And don't forget, tomorrow, we're always interested in black magic and what's happening. Tomorrow, I think after the show, Alex, are we still doing the kind of a after show
yes, we are.
Coverage?
We're just going to keep going. Yeah, it's just going to keep rolling forward.
Instead of stopping after the first hour tomorrow, we're going to keep going, and we're going to kind of come in from watching the announcements that Grant does at the Black Magic press conference prior to NAB. So that's another thing to put on your calendar. Next question.
Roz McNulty in Vancouver, BC, Canada is asking, how can I sync my iCloud Drive with my Google Drive? I've tried the Google Drive app, but I think it's causing issues with my Mac. Any other suggestions on how to mirror the drive?
Alexander Knight's going to help you out. Alexander?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the use case is, why you need it doubled there in Google Drive, but if you were to do this, one thing you could do is probably build a script that can copy those files and just, set a schedule and say once a day at whatever time. You might be able to do it with Apple shortcuts, but if not, one thing you could probably do is use something like ChatGPT and see if it could actually build you an Apple script. And in fact, actually, just the other day, I did ask ChatGPT if it can write Apple script, and it says it can. So you may want to test that out and see if it works.
Jeff, I have to tell this story. Just a couple of days ago, we had a problem with our water heater, and asked ChatGPT, and they found a local service rep who came over and replaced our water heater. It's the first time I just used it as a search engine, and it was like, wow, I didn't think about that before. Lots of things changing. Hey, if you want to have a question you want to put into the show queue, you can also type askofficehours.global into your web browser. Let me throw up the QR code just in case you want to scan that with your phone or something like that. That's askofficehours.global. That puts you kind of into the quick lane there. It looks things over. Make sure your questions are show ready, concise, well-formed, and one question at a time. But if you take care of all of that, this is the fastest way to get things into the show question queue. AskOfficeHours.global. Next question.
Jeff Simmons in St. Louis is asking, does anybody happen to know a good resource, step-by-step instructions or video, for repairing LED walls, particularly the LEDs in the individual panels? The tech at work that's eventually going to teach me has been very, very busy.
Courtney Gooden.
Well, it depends. It depends on who made the LED wall, what the pitch of the LEDs are. Are the LEDs proprietary, or are they off the shelf? Most of the LED walls are assembled by robots these days, and they're all surface mount. There are companies, LED walls are made up of individual panels that are locked together. And when somebody runs a piece of something into an LED wall, it can damage one or two of the little LEDs and make them dark, or make them only display one color instead of three colors. RGB, so you'll have a funny colored pixel or a dark pixel. The easiest way is to remove that panel and have a spare panel standing by that you can always replace that panel. Then you can send that panel off to a company that can repair it. They can repair it. The LED wall manufacturers just want you to replace the whole module. I did find there's a company in Los Angeles called Azar Pixel that repairs panels from different manufacturers of LED walls. That's to be done very carefully with a hot air gun. I wouldn't want to try and do it since they're all surface mount, and there's thousands of little LEDs in there, and finding the right one from the front is, if you pull the wrong one off and replace it, then turn it back on and put it back in and find out, oh, gee, I replaced the one next to it instead of the right one. But they have on their website at Axel Pixels, they have case studies of different repairs here that you can look at. how they've been done on all the different type pitches and different manufacturers, and they support a number of different manufacturers and types of LEDs. So I don't know if there's just a generic, how to replace a pixel in an LED wall panel video out there, because it would probably have to be pretty specific for a certain type of LED wall brand and pixel pitch.
Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, the way that we have really found the best way to repair a panel on an LED is to remove it and put a new one in. We've gone down this path. We've had some people that go down these and they have never worked the same again. Like it's always like you see this little tweak on it. So usually what happens is the edges, you lose the edges, is where that's usually the problem that we have. But we take that as it's a cost of owning an LED wall, is to replace those things. We might use the older LEDs that are broken or aren't working or whatever. We will oftentimes, we might use those for other LEDs that we're using internally that we don't care if a couple of them are out. Jeff says that they're not. He said they repair them. I guess the problem is I haven't used anything above 1.5 for a long time. So in the 1.5 and below, they're unrepairable, in my opinion. At 2.8, you might be able to pull it off. So
there you go. Hopefully that was helpful. Next question.
Tony Mobley in Newnan, Georgia is asking, created a setup for my wife's retirement, M4 MacBook Air, external portable monitor with stand, Alex and panel. Does she need a camera and mic for Zoom or online education for her?
Ooh, question here. Alexander Knight, what do you think? Can she get by with the stock?
From what I've seen on the new M4 Max, the cameras and the built-in mic array is pretty good. I mean, a standalone camera, yes, you can get better cameras. Yes, you can get better mics. But for a quick setup, they're pretty decent. There's a couple of suggestions I would have. Number one, make sure you get a laptop stand where you can get the laptop raised to the proper height so that, the camera's not pointed up at you this way from down up, because that's not flattering, or vice versa from up above. So you kind of want to get it right at eye level, and then also see if you can sit relatively close to the laptop as well, because those mics work better when you're closer to the laptop. Just record a video. You can actually use something like QuickTime on your Mac. Just record yourself and see how you sound. Now, I still think you will get better sound with a dedicated dynamic microphone. We've mentioned this in the past, but you could look at the Shure MV6, which is a $150 US USB microphone. And if you can get that thing on a boom and get it really close within a few inches of your mouth, it's probably going to sound better than that. But before you spend any money, at least test that setup, see how it looks, see how it sounds, and then go from there.
Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, John Wallace in the chat says that the Air mic is pretty bad. It is, and the Air mic and the MacBook Pro mic are very different. So they are not the same mic. And so the system that manages those, it depends on the space too. So just remember, when you decide, can I use this camera? Can I use this mic? What room is she going to be in? So if you can make the room much more acoustically favorable, as well as the lighting, you probably could get away with, for basic stuff that isn't broadcast, and you just want to open it up and be there and have a high quality look and feel and sound good. If you make the room not roomy, then you make the light. You may find a big soft light, which again doesn't have to be expensive. Mine's not. Something that's picking up most, if not all, the reflections. So those types of things are going to make a big difference. If she's not willing to do that, if you don't have a house or a room that you want to use for that, then you should get something with a lot of off-axis rejection, like an MV6, that's going to get rid of a lot of that stuff just because it's not picking it up.
Guy Cochran.
Yeah, I wanted to say great show last night, Tony. I mean, that was fantastic. The community, just seeing how we've helped people get jobs and really influence lives. It's a fantastic episode. For those of you who haven't watched it, I highly suggest tuning in, especially Alex. If you didn't watch that one, Tony, just wow, out of the ballpark. Back to the question. You guys summed it up pretty well. I have the MacBook Air M2, and the camera in there is super impressive, so I wouldn't worry so much about the camera unless you want to step up to something like the Insta360 that has the larger sensor. I would be more concerned about lighting, so if you're going to throw money at something, I would go with some lights. And John Edelson uses this little Samsung Go mic that's like $30. That's super impressive. If you don't want to spend a whole lot of money, Samsung Go mic, it's a little USB condenser mic that it sounds fantastic when it's positioned close. So the key is to get it somehow a little closer. You can't just put it on the desk and hope for the best. It needs to be positioned correctly.
And if you don't know about Tony's show, that's Conversations with Tony Mobley. It's on Wednesdays, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 Eastern. So something to look at. It's been going for I think that's the longest running consistent show we've had on office hours here. So a lot of stuff, a lot of interesting people to take a look at. Let's go to our next question.
From the QR code, Jim in Kansas. What's the best way to travel with Shockz? I'm struggling to store them in a way that doesn't accidentally turn them on in transit.
Courtney Gooden may have a suggestion for you. Courtney?
Well, they come with a little pouch. That's what I've always put mine in to store them and travel with them. But I guess maybe they can get hit on. You could get a hard shell. Pelican makes a case that's about this big that they would fit in. You could cut some foam out and stuff them in there and make sure that there's no foam rubbing against the switch. And that's a good way to travel with them. I think it's kind of overkill, but or maybe take your pouch and put it in somewhere where something can't bump up against it.
Alex Lindsay?
Depends on which ones you have too. So a lot of the open Shockz have a button near the front, and that's the one you're probably struggling with. I have to admit, for the open comms, which I have a lot of pairs of, the button's on the inside, and I just throw it in my backpack. I don't know if they've ever been turned on by accident, and they're just kind of stuffed in there. I usually have 2 or 3 pairs that are in my backpack at any given time.
Jonas Dottle said, on your head. I've never had an issue with turning them on, but I always forget to turn them off. Anyway, next question.
Jack Cannon in Phoenix, Arizona, USA. What are your favorite budget PTZs? I'm helping build a live streaming studio at my local veteran center, and eventually I'd like to get them their own cameras, low budget, nonprofit. The goal is to set and forget like a house of worship.
Alex Lindsay is going to help us out. Alex?
Yeah, I think the question is who's going to watch it. I think we've talked about this in the past, but content is easy to make or easy to watch. Rarely both. And so you just want to think about who's watching it and what is this serving. So think about that process there. I think that and who's going to who's going to run it. Someone's got to run something, So you got to figure out what that is. You may be better off sometimes with lockable. Now, if you're trying to build a studio that is something where people are going to sit down and talk, then I think that's another. You could possibly do it with something like a link. In little studio environments, I've used the link, these Insta360 links, as a way to do that with Mimo Live, and it's been a great little thing. It's not completely set and forget, but PTZs are not. The reason they're by nature not set and forget. So you're going to need to put them somewhere. But those have been good. It just depends on how far you're trying to throw. If it's a studio, you might be able to get away with something like that. If it's not a studio, then you may need to start getting something with longer throws. We've had PTZ optics on here. From a budget perspective, they're pretty good as you go up. The Canons are probably the next level from there. And then up, of course, as you know, the Sonys have some pretty good, the FR7s are pretty good, but that's probably outside of the budget you're trying to hit. But that starts at $150 at the camera. At the Insta360s, I think that the PTZ optics will be in the kind of $1,000 to $2,000 a unit cost. Canons being in the kind of the $4,000 or $5,000 range.
Guy Cochran.
Yeah, it depends, as Alex said, on quality and then who's going to control them. There's some simple ways that you can do things with a Zoom room, which is pretty shocking. If you allow in the back end of a Zoom room, you can say allow request for far end control, and basically what that does is if somebody right clicks on that camera, it'll allow the little 4-way arrow to zoom in, zoom out. So for quality though, this new little guy, was super impressed with it. We had this at a show we did recently, and I was like, wow, for the price. I mean, it's up there, but this is a 1/1.5 CMOS. It's only a 12-inch optical, so if you don't need a whole lot of reach, that's a pretty good sensor compared to what PTZ Optics. And I hate to bash on PTZ Optics because I love those guys. And if you get a chance at NAB, go take a look at the image quality. If you need 20x, then go PTZ Optics. But this is a 4K. So the ones that I have sitting here, so this camera here is a PTZ Optics Move. I have 2 of them set up, and I use them for demos. And it's a decent camera, but it's not a large sensor. Once you get into this world of large sensors, it's kind of hard to go back. So, I mean, high end, as Alex said, FR7, CRN 500, anywhere in the Canon line, you can't really go wrong. It depends on how much control that you want and if you will have operators and a joystick and getting all that fine control. But I think I'm probably blowing up your budget once we start talking joysticks. And actually, there are some inexpensive joysticks as well. It depends on, again, who's going to operate it. Do you want them locally? Do you want them on-prem? And then could you just use something like a Stream Deck? Because I program Stream Decks all the time just with all the presets, and I could do 4 cameras and have a row on a 32 button Stream Deck and just have all my presets and be ready to go for a long show with everything already knocked out.
What? Office hours blowing up your budget? Who would have thought? Next question.
This one's for me. Is there a website that is aggregating NAB product announcements? So far, I'm aware of one particular product, but want to discuss anything notable on my Sunday show.
Oh, you really want to join the flood of pre-NAB process? Alex?
I don't know of any that are, I don't know of any that are putting up too much. Post Magazine has their own thing. Video Maker, I think, still puts up stuff online. So there's a couple of them that are out there. I have to admit that the best way to do it is to let people know that you're in the press, and then they send you all the press releases a little early. So you're not allowed to talk. You just have to remember what you can and can't talk about. That's going to be the thing. But I think we're going to have a lot to talk about tomorrow. So I think I'd keep, you'll have some stuff in the morning from a couple different companies that are going to get released, I believe, tomorrow. So we'll talk about that probably during the show and in the second hour.
Yeah, I've gotten a flood of emails with embargoed intel, and then you get the date that you can actually talk about things. Courtney?
Yeah, if you sign up for the NAB mailing list, I get tons of emails every day on, that all the manufacturers use that mailing list to send out their announcements for NAB. So if you go to nabshow.com, and also there's the show daily that NAB publishes themselves. It's the little tabloid handout that they print and hand out at the entrance to the show floor. I think they're still doing that. I haven't been to NAB in a couple of years, so they may have gotten rid of the print version and now do a digital version only. But look for the show daily, and I think they make a digital version that you can download and browse through. And all the manufacturers take advertisements in there and do show announcements. And there's editorial pieces on newly released equipment there. You can find stuff there, and it's different every day, so sign up for that.
There are also a ton of professional PR people who manage outreach for a lot of tech companies, and one PR firm might handle 50, 100 different products, so you will get floods from them as well. It's just a lot of aggregating to do. Alex, you wanted to mention something?
Yeah, and if you want to know what Blackmagic's releasing, all you have to do is look at the pictures of this Moscow of LVCC on Saturday. So people take pictures of them, these giant posters, and Blackmagic kind of just takes over all the walls of the exterior walls of all the things and drops their stuff down. So there's that. I will underline what Courtney, I think, said is that, I don't know, maybe they make it online. The NAB, my Bible when I'm at NAB is the daily magazine. And it's available every time you walk in anywhere. And it just has all the new stuff, everything new that's there. And usually the first day, Sunday, is the most important one. So maybe you might want to see if it's online somewhere. But the NAB, the update that happens every morning is usually one of the best resources for everything that's new.
Guy Cochran?
Yeah, and with so much noise, I was wondering if there is a spot in our Discord where we could just start pumping in some of the best of type things. Is there anywhere? And there's not an NAB 2025 specific, and I don't want to say, let's create another one.
I'm not against putting a channel in and then taking it out either, like leaving it up for the week and taking it down.
Temp channel.
Yeah, temp channel. So if someone wants to do that, let me know and we'll tell people where it is.
Next question.
Zach Stelsmith in Chautauqua, New York. Thanks to the Office Hours community, I am redoing my home office. It is a well naturally lit room, and I'd like to add some controllable lighting and acoustic treatment to the space. Recommendations?
There's tons of them. We've been talking about this for such a long time. There are a lot of our episodes where we've gone into depth on this. We'll try to go through this without taking up the rest of the show. Alexander Knight's going to start us off. Alexander.
Yeah, so for acoustic treatment, there are many companies that make stuff like this. If you're willing to put panels on the wall, I would recommend it over foam. I have experience with Prime Acoustic, so I've come to trust them as a company that make acoustic treatment. They make all sorts of panels. They make kits, actually. I would actually look at the London series of panel kits. They come in different sizes, and they're rated for a specific square footage. They come in multiple colors. You can even get them in paintable versions, so they're very attractive, but they do a very, very good job for absorbing frequencies and really just getting rid of that kind of liveliness of a room. So I would have a look at that. The London 8 kit is the smallest, most affordable kit that they make. So if it's a smaller bedroom, that may work well for you, and I'll let everybody else talk about lighting.
Alex Lindsay.
It's really the first thing that I know that it seems great when it's well lit, but the first thing to do is block out all the windows. I mean, that's the first. Almost all of us will just get rid of all the windows that we can. If you're really trying to tune up your studio, you want to have total control over it. I lean towards very large sources of light that aren't particularly bright. It's a little easier on your eyes, and it also, I think, produces a more pleasing thing for most of us. So those are some things to think about there. I'm using moving blankets. It doesn't look particularly pretty. On ones that we try to make it look pretty, we oftentimes are using some really thick velour curtains that are at 100% fullness. Obviously, you can get a lot of panels. It'll look more like a radio station. And then the really nice ones that we've gone into, build a wall that has acoustic panels that are covered then in front of them with fabric, and man, does that sound good and look good. But that's an expensive process.
Jesse Kester.
Acoustic treatment doesn't have to look like acoustic treatment. If you're building a sound studio and you focus on sound, it's good to have those sound panels around you, because then people see you on Zoom and immediately lock in that you're a sound guy. But acoustic treatment can look like bookshelves with uneven books, which happens naturally unless you only have the same encyclopedia set on every shelf. This creates baffling that deflects sound and can treat the room. Stuff like couches, beautiful carpets, curtains along the walls, even where there isn't a window, can look really lovely without looking like sound treatment.
Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, I was going to second what Alex was saying about, because I have the problem with this, is being able to block the light out of the windows. I need to have a blackout shade, but I can't figure out how to put it on this French door that's next to me. And I have the problem because if you have windows with great natural light changes throughout the day. And if you're going to be broadcasting a longer show like this one, the light changes, particularly at this time of the morning. And so I find that in the middle of this show, I have to actually change the position of my key light, because the key light of the sun hitting the left side of my face here gets so bright that it can cause the exposure to drop down and it become more difficult to see detail. So I have to actually adjust the position of my fill light throughout the show. So have movable lights if you're going to have that natural light coming through the window. Otherwise, block it out. Then you can leave your lighting set throughout the show, because it won't be changing unless you change it.
Guy Cochran.
Yeah, I'll just cut to this real quick. Here's some IntelliTech panel lights that they're light mattes, so I could pack these up and take them with me. I also have some aperture ones like this. These you can see I have the egg crates on them. You can also see I have some Acoustic is the brand panels here and over there and behind me. Lighting wise, you could also see that the sun's coming in, so blocking that sun is important. But yeah, I still have some coming in. But yeah, those are a couple things that you can take a look at and see the results here. And of course, I have this really cool teleprompter. If you can get one of those are, make the eye contact amazing. So this one's by Prompter People.
If you like and value what we do here, there are a few ways you can help. You can like and subscribe. Boy, sorry about that. Mouth is not in gear. You can like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Volunteer at officehours.global/volunteer. Become part of the team that makes this possible. Or you can donate to officehours.global/donate. Next question.
Jim Brooks in New York City is asking, I'm finally upgrading my very old MacBook Pro. What is the best M-Series MacBook Pro configuration for DaVinci Resolve, paid version, and Lightroom/Photoshop editing? Thanks.
Alexander Knight.
Okay, I'm going to speak to DaVinci Resolve specifically because I'm not really much of a Photoshop user. But again, as we normally say, it depends. What are you doing? Are you working with 1080p files? Are you working with 4K ProRes? Are you working with higher resolution stuff that's in the RAW format, which requires even more processing? Are you doing visual effects inside of DaVinci Resolve? That's another use case that requires more processing. So it depends on what your requirements are. If you are going to be leaning more towards working with raw video file formats and doing any kind of visual effects stuff or processing inside of Resolve, you may want to think about something with a max CPU, at least with 24 gigs of RAM or more for what you're doing. So just evaluate carefully what you're really doing.
Alex Lindsay.
What Alex said.
There you go. Jesse Kester.
I wouldn't be scared to throw a bit of money at this project. To think about a $3,600 laptop. If you're using it for 3 years, that's $100 a month and probably worth it if your business depends on it.
Next question.
Jonas Daltel in Stuttgart is asking, what would you like to transmit over NDI that isn't already supported by the current metadata?
And Guy Cochran's going to help you out here, Guy.
This Stream Deck. So I'd love to have my Stream Deck, and then the other thing that's sitting here on my desk, if I don't knock anything over, would be this big old panel, and then all the camera control. So while I'm doing PTZ operation on one of the bigger panels, I'd love to be able to get access to paint those cameras. So all of that control would be great, which I do see on that page that you linked to, that it says coming soon. So published is PTZ control, Tally KVM, Tools on Air has CEA 708, and then there's MIDI control by Llama, DMX by Salray, and time text captions there. So lots of stuff, but I'm excited to see whatever happens with the extended camera control. And by the way, Llama just announced beta for Mac, so that's another cool thing that's NAB release.
You know, a lot of announcements get held until the whole world is paying attention during NAB, so you'll see a flood of stuff. Next question.
Henry Ramos in Yonkers, New York City, New York. I'm helping someone set up a backup external drive for the Windows 11 PC. What's a good app to automate regular backups?
Courtney Gooden, can you help?
I don't know about automating it necessarily. You know, what I do is learn how to use the xcopy command. It's an old DOS command, and it has all of these online switches, and what you do is you just build a text file in Notepad that says xcopy, and then it has the source, the destination. Then it has all these different switches, and all these different little slash switches at the end can do things like copy the whole folder, only copy the newer files, only copy if the archive bit is set, only copy, you know, there's switches to turn on and off, whether those files, all the files, some of the files, the date on the files, copy all the files since this date, etc. And once you get the switches set for the folders, the contents of the folders that you want to back up set, I just save that out as a batch file and make it an icon on my desktop. And then you can have it either execute that every time you start up your computer, or you can have it execute that daily to schedule it. Or I just, when I've made a lot of changes and I want to do my backup, I just double click on that batch file. It executes, it opens a command window, runs the xcopy command, and then disappears. And it copies all the stuff to the destination drive, all the stuff that I've specified to copy without having to make a full backup. It just copies the files that I know are changing, or I know I want to make sure is on that backup.
And we got a couple of suggestions in the chat. James Haldane says Arconis.net for automated backup. And then Henry Ramos says rsync. Oh, I'm sorry. Mickey says rsync. So there are some suggestions from the chat. We got time for one more. Let's sneak another question in.
Alex 40 Golner in London. This question is about places to discuss the use and future of Final Cut Pro and Motion. Facebook is feeling less relevant. Where would you suggest I go? Is LinkedIn coming up?
Alex Lindsay, what do you think?
We have some places on the forum, and if you wanted to spend more time there, we would help you build that up. We're super interested in supporting that community, both of those communities. So if you are interested in doing that, reach out to me and we'll talk.
Yeah, it's really become so widespread that in addition to the seems like 100 or so Facebook forums, that there's communities that discuss things on almost all the platforms. But yeah, our Discord would be a good place. And it's constantly in flux. We're constantly trying to pay attention. There's been a big push for mobile computing with Final Cut since Final Cut for iPad has been released, and you can do things like multicam switching directly on phones into an iPad kind of configuration, which just wasn't possible before. So there's a lot of development still quietly going out there, and it's a huge community. Alex?
Yeah, and I think that there's still a lot of things as it relates to spatial. And again, there's a lot of places that should be using some of these platforms, Final Cut and Motion, that just don't know where to get started. So we're definitely interested in helping that community grow. I agree with you that I haven't found anywhere that it's particularly available, like in a way that I would go, oh yeah, that's where I want to go to discuss those things. And so if it's a use that we can provide, we're interested.
Let's go to another question before we finish up. We're almost done.
Henry Ramos in Yonkers, New York. Has anyone hooked up an external cam to an iPad, have an Air M2, and having trouble with USB capture to a dock with USB-C?
Guy Cochran, have you had success?
Yeah, when we first started hearing rumors that this was going to be a thing, I was watching some of the developer stuff and watching some of the videos on the Apple developer WWDC tech stuff. And I wound up buying this 12 South Stego. This one works. We tested it with the Ivy. So we've hooked up our product called the Ivy. It's a USB camera, essentially, that when you plug it into an iPad, it does work. So that device is the one that is tried and true. I'll put a link in chat.
Thank you all for participating today. Special thanks to our producers, those of you who have asked the questions and voted on the questions and otherwise engaged in the show and telling us what you want to hear about. We really appreciate your efforts every day. To the panelists who show up here every day to answer questions, thank you all. And our amazing back-end crew, the people who are sightless, unseen, not on the show, and their faces aren't forward, but boy, are they mission critical to getting this out to you every day. They are dispersed all over the world. It is a fabulous community. And, you know, if you do the officehours.global/join thing and you kind of become part of the community, you'll see there's so many opportunities to meet people and figure out how this wide world of webcasting works. So thank you to an entire back-end crew. That takes us to the Talk Traversal. For those of you who are interested in how broadly we reach people, we would have had to travel 51,000 miles out to people to get them to ask these questions in person. That's 83,000 kilometers or 408 million bananas for scale. We'll see you tomorrow. Oh, look at that. Guys doing graphics for us.
Is that how you spell crew? I don't think so.
With this motley crew? Yeah, that's how you spell it.
I don't think they're going to switch to it since we're running credits, but it's very cool.
That is the French-Canadian pronunciation. I think he's up there near the Canadian border.
See y'all tomorrow after the show. NAB coverage goes live. Or NAB, the Black Magic